You're looking at census data, columns of names, ages, occupations, ordinary, boring, even the kind of thing that exists to count people, nothing more. Now, forget everything you think you know about population records, because in the 1880s and early 1890s, something was being counted that shouldn't have existed, and then between one census and the next, it vanished. 2 million people, gone, not dead, not emigrated, just removed from the records, as if they were never there, but they were there, and someone went to extraordinary lengths to make sure you'd never know about them. It was February 2019. I was in the National Archives Annex, in College Park, Maryland, doing research on 19th century immigration patterns. Tedious work. I'd requested census microfilm for Pennsylvania, 1890, expecting the usual. Families, occupations, ages. The reading room was quiet. That particular silence of places where people handle old things carefully. Fluorescent lights humming. The smell of old paper and machine oil from the microfilm readers. I threaded the film onto the reader, wound it forward, found Allegheny County, Pittsburgh district, started scanning the columns, and then I stopped. Under the remarks column, which is usually blank or contains notes like cannot read or border, I saw something else. Height, 7 feet 8 in. I stared at it, rubbed my eyes. The notation was clear, handwritten in the same ink as the rest of the page, the same hand. Not a later edition, part of the original enumeration. One entry like that, you'd call it an anomaly. Someone with gigantism perhaps. Rare, but not impossible. But the next page had 3 more. 7 feet 4 in, 7:11 in, 8 feet 2 in. I kept going. The next street, more notations. 7 feet 5 in, 7 feet 6 in, 7 feet 9 in. Not in every entry. Maybe 1 in 15, 1 in 20. But consistent enough to be impossible to ignore. I went back to the beginning of the enumeration district, counted carefully. In a population of approximately 8,400 people in that single district, there were 412 height notations, all of them between 7 feet 2 inches and 8 feet 5. That's roughly 5% of the population. I sat back from the microfilm reader, thought about what that would mean. In a city district of 8,400 people, over 400 individuals measuring between 7 and 8.5 feet tall. The medical term for gigantism suggests it occurs in roughly 3-4 people per million. Pittsburgh in 1890 had a population of around 240,000. By those numbers, there should have been maybe 1 person with gigantism in the entire city, not 412 in a single enumeration district. I photographed every page. Then I requested the 1890 census for Philadelphia. Different state? No, different district in Pennsylvania. I needed to see if this was localized or widespread. Philadelphia's records showed the same pattern. Height notations scattered through the pages. 7 feet 7 in, 7:10 in, 8 feet 1. In the Northern Liberties district alone, 387 notations across a population of 9,200. I requested New York, Boston, Baltimore. The pattern held. In every major city in the northeastern United States, the 1890 census contained these height notations, thousands of them. Always in the same range, always in roughly the same proportion, between 4 and 6% of the enumerated population. Then I requested the 1900 census. The height column was gone. Let me show you what I found in Chicago's records before they vanished. The 1889 Chicago City Directory, not the federal census, but the local directory compiled by private firms, contains something extraordinary. Under height notations for special census supplement, there's a section I nearly missed. 37 pages of names, addresses, and measurements. The directory is available at the Chicago History Museum. I visited in March 2019. The reading room overlooks Lincoln Park. Outside, it was snowing lightly. Inside, the air was dry and still. I requested the 1889 directory. The librarian brought it to me on a cart, already wearing gloves. Heavy one, she said. It was, bound in green buckram, spine reinforced with leather. When I opened it, the pages crackled slightly. That particular sound of paper that's been sitting undisturbed for over a century. I found the supplement section, and I started reading. Abrahamson, Nils, 247 W Division. St. Carpenter, height, 7 feet 6 in. Alexandrov, Dmitri, 89 South Halsted Street laborer, height, 7 feet 9 in. Berglund, Anders, 156 N. Clark St. Stonemason, height, 7 feet 8 in. Page after page, 37 pages, each page containing approximately 45 entries. That's over 1,600 individuals. And these weren't medical cases. These were working people, carpenters, stonemasons, laborers, factory workers. The occupations listed were ordinary, the heights were not. I photographed every page. Then I asked the librarian if the 1900 directory had a similar supplement. She checked the catalog, brought me the 1900 volume. No supplement, no height section, nothing. Was there ever a notation about why it was removed? I asked. She checked the acquisition records, shook her head. No reason given. We have the 1889 with the supplement. Then we had 1891, 1892, 1894. No supplement in any of them. The 1890 directory is missing entirely from our collection. Lost during the 1938 reorganization, apparently. I made a note, Chicago directory 1890 missing. Then I started looking for the people. I took the first 10 names from the supplement, looked them up in the 1889 federal census, found 7 of them, all listed with the same occupations, same addresses, and in the remarks column, height, 7 feet 6, in, height, 7 feet 9, in, height, 7 feet 8, n. Then I looked for them in the 1900 federal census. 3 were listed. Same names, same approximate ages, 10 years older, same occupations, no height notation, no explanation for the removal, just gone. The pattern wasn't limited to the Northeast. St. Louis in 1891 had a population of approximately 450,000. The census for that year, taken by the state, not the federal government, as Missouri conducted state censuses in odd years, contains something that shouldn't exist if these people were medical anomalies. I found it in the Missouri State Archives in Jefferson City, July 2019. The building is modern, climate-controlled, fluorescent lit, the kind of place where nothing unexpected should happen. The archivist brought me the microfilm. St. Louis County, Ward 12, and Wentworth District 4. I started scanning. The height notations were there, but this time, there was something else. Family clusters. Murphy Sean, age 34, laborer. Height, 7 feet 7 in. Murphy Bridget, age 32, keeping house. Height, 7 feet 4 in. Murphy Michael, age 9, at school. Height, 5'8" in. Murphy Catherine, age 7, at school. Height, 5 feet. An entire family, father and mother both over 7 feet. Children who, at ages 9 and 7, were already unusually tall for their age but not impossibly so. This happened again and again through the St. Causidy, Louis records. Not isolated individuals with gigantism, families, multiple generations, children showing the same tendency toward unusual height as their parents. I counted 2,847 individuals with height notations in St. State, Louis alone. In a population of 450,000, that's 0.6%, lower than Pittsburgh or Chicago, but still far beyond what medical frequency would predict. And here's what made me stop breathing for a moment. In the enumeration district I was examining, there was a note in the margin, handwritten, not by the original enumerator, different ink, different hand, added later. It said, height measurements discontinued per department directive, November 1891. No further notation authorized. I photographed the page, sat back, stared at it. Someone had ordered the height measurements stopped. Mid-census, an entire category of data collection, discontinued by directive. I requested the 1900 St. Louis census. No height column, no measurements, and more importantly, no families matching the names I'd found in 1891 with those unusual proportions. The Murphy family, gone from the records. Not dead, I checked death certificates. Not moved, I checked city directories. Just removed. As if they'd never existed. The pattern wasn't confined to America. In September 2019, I went to the National Archives in Kew, just outside London. I wasn't looking for census records. Initially, I was following a lead about British military recruitment records from the 1880s. The archives at Kew are vast. Miles of records, centuries of documentation, and somewhere in there, buried in a misfiled box of miscellaneous Colonial Office records, 1870, 1895, I found something impossible. It was a report, 23 pages, typewritten, dated March 1891. The header read, Confidential Report on Physical Anomalies in Census Entrée, India Office. I almost missed it. The box was labeled incorrectly. It should have been with India Office records, but it had somehow ended up with Colonial Office materials. The kind of misfiling that happens during reorganizations, when boxes get moved and cataloging errors compound. The report was dry, bureaucratic, the kind of language designed to obscure rather than reveal, but the content was extraordinary. It documented census enumeration problems in British India during the 1891 census. Specifically, it discussed inconsistencies in height measurement protocols and unauthorized collection of anthropometric data. According to the report, census enumerators in Bengal, Punjab, and the Northwest Frontier Province had been recording heights, not for everyone, only for individuals exceeding 7 feet in stature. The numbers were staggering. Bengal, 14,287 individuals recorded. Punjab, 8,931 individuals recorded. Northwest Frontier, 3,104 individuals recorded. Total 26,322 individuals over 7 feet tall, recorded in a single census year across 3 provinces of British India. The report's author, unnamed, signature, illegible, concluded that this data collection was unauthorized, inappropriate, and not to be included in final census tabulations. The recommendation was to strike all such measurements from official record and to ensure future enumerators understand the boundaries of appropriate data collection. The measurements were removed, the report was filed, and apparently forgotten. I requested the official published census results for British India, 1890. 1 tested. No mention of height, no anthropometric data, no indication that this mass measurement had ever occurred. But the report still existed. Misfiled, forgotten, waiting. 3 weeks after returning from London, I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the Smithsonian Institution. I was looking for correspondence between the Smithsonian and census officials during the 1890s regarding anthropometric studies and physical surveys. FOIA requests are slow. I expected to wait months. I received a response in 6 weeks. Partial approval. 47 pages released. 32 pages withheld under Exemption B, which covers information specifically exempted by statute. The 47 pages were revealing enough. They were letters, correspondence between Dr. Elash Herdlicha, physical anthropologist at the Smithsonian, and various census officials between 1889 and 1892. Herdlicha was asking questions. He'd noticed something in preliminary census data. He'd seen the height measurements. He wanted to know, was this being studied? Were these individuals being examined? Could he access the data for research? The census officials replied, politely, evasively, June 1890. The measurements you reference are preliminary notations only and may not reflect final enumeration. October 1890. We are reviewing the appropriateness of including anthropometric data in census tabulations. March 1890. 1 Mons Compli, the data you request is not available for external research at this time. And then, November 1891, a letter from the Secretary of the Interior. Dr. Herdley, your continued inquiries regarding height measurements in census enumeration are noted. However, I must inform you that such measurements are not part of standard census protocol and will not be included in published reports. The individuals you reference represent data collection errors and are not suitable subjects for anthropological study. This matter is now closed. No further correspondence will be entertained. Herdlicha wrote one more letter. December 1891. I must protest in the strongest terms the decision to exclude this data. The implications for understanding human variation are profound. These individuals exist. They were measured by trained enumerators. To dismiss them as errors is scientifically indefensible. I request access to the raw data before it is destroyed. There was no response on file. I filed a follow-up FOIA request, specifically asking for the 32 withheld pages. Denied. Reason: documents contain information relating to ongoing security classification. Release would compromise protected data. Ongoing security classification. For correspondence from 1891, I tried to access Herdlicha's personal papers at the Smithsonian. His census correspondence is missing. The catalog lists it. Box 47. Census correspondence 1889. 1892. But when I requested the box, the archivist came back empty-handed. Missing. No record of when it was removed or by whom. Last documented access, 1974. The timeline of these disappearances becomes even stranger when you look at a parallel phenomenon. The orphan trains. Between 1854 and 1929, an estimated 250,000 children were transported from eastern cities to the Midwest and Western states through the orphan train program. The official story is charitable. Overcrowded orphanages. Poverty, a chance for better lives on farms, but the timing is precise. The peak years of orphan train placements, 1888 to 1894, overlap exactly with the census height measurements and their subsequent removal. And the children sent west weren't just from orphanages. I found this in the records of the Children's Aid Society of New York, archived at the New York Public Library. Letter after letter from parents, Not destitute parents surrendering children they couldn't feed, parents with jobs, parents with homes. Mrs. Elena Kowalski, 247 Rivington Street, September 1889. They came in the night, said our Stanislaw was needed for agricultural placement program. He's only 8 years old. Why him? Why not other boys on the street? Mr. Heinrich Vogel, 82 Orchard Street, November 1890. My daughter was taken from school. They said she qualified for special resettlement. She's 10. She's not an orphan. We want her back. The letters were filed, rarely answered. When answered, the response was standard. Your child has been placed in a suitable home in state name. For their well-being, contact is not permitted during the adjustment period. They are no longer your concern. I started cross-referencing, took the names of children from these letters, looked for their parents in the 1890 census, found them, and found the height notations. Kowalski, Elena, height, 7 feet 5 in. Vogel, Heinrich, height, 7 feet 7 in. Their children were taken, not from orphanages, from their homes, from families where one or both parents exceeded 7 feet in height. I requested orphan train placement records for those same children. Sealed, access restricted, reason privacy protection for descendants. But some records survived in state archives where the children were sent. I found them in Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska. The placement cards were standardized: name, approximate age, physical description. And there at the bottom of dozens of cards, a notation: unusual stature for age. Placed with agricultural family. Monitor growth. These children were being tracked. Separated from their tall parents. Placed in homes where their growth could be monitored and, presumably, limited through nutrition or other means. An entire generation. Scattered. Their lineage broken. The census records can be altered. Papers can be destroyed. People can be scattered across a continent. But buildings remember. In January 2020, I spent 2 weeks in Pittsburgh, measuring doorways. Specifically, I was measuring doorways in buildings constructed between 1880 and 1895, the same window of time when height measurements appeared in census records and then vanished. I started in Allegheny City, now Pittsburgh's north side. Row houses from the 1880s. Most have been renovated, but the original door frames remain. Standard residential doorway height today, 6 feet 8, sometimes 7 feet in newer construction. The doorways I measured, 8 feet 6 inches, 8 feet 9, 9 feet 2. Interior doorways, not grand entrances designed for dramatic effect. Kitchen doors, bedroom doors, bathroom doors. One house on Cedar Avenue, built in 1887, had interior doorways measuring 8 feet 10. The original owner, according to city records, was Thomas Erickson, listed in the 1890 census as a steel worker. Next to his name, in the census, height 7 feet 11 in. The house had been sold in 1902. The new owner's name is recorded, but nothing about the Erickson family. No death certificates, no record of where they went. Just a house with doorways built for someone very tall. I measured 73 buildings across Pittsburgh, all constructed between 1885 and 1894. The average interior doorway height, 8 feet 7. After 1895, the pattern changes. Buildings constructed after that date have standard doorway heights. Nothing unusual. As if, suddenly, no one needed the extra height anymore. The Western census records tell the same story, but with a different ending. The 1890 census was destroyed, officially, in a fire at the Commerce Department in 1921. Most of it, but fragments survived. Private copies, duplicate schedules kept by state archives, preliminary tallies that were distributed before the final count. California kept duplicates. They're in the California State Archives in Sacramento, and they're not complete, but they're enough. San Francisco in 1890, population 298,997. In the surviving schedules for districts 7 through 14, there are 1,847 height notations, all between 7 feet 2 and 8 feet 6 inches. If that proportion held across the entire city, San Francisco would have had approximately 4,300 people over 7 feet tall. But there's something else in the San Francisco records, something that doesn't appear in the Eastern Census data. Place of birth. Most are listed as California, but a significant number, roughly 40%, are listed with a different birthplace notation. Not a city, not a state, not even unknown. They're listed as Northwest Territory, not the historical Northwest Territory of the 1780s. There's no date attached, just Northwest Territory. I couldn't find any Census Bureau guideline that authorized this designation for the 1890 census. It doesn't appear in the enumerator's handbook. It's not a standard category, and yet there it is. In the San Francisco records, over 700 individuals, all over 7 feet tall, all listed as born in Northwest Territory. I tried to track some of them through California vital records, birth certificates, marriage licenses, death certificates, nothing. No birth records matching the names, no death records after 1890. It's as if they arrived, were counted once, and then disappeared. Dead people leave traces. Even when records are destroyed, bodies remain. And unusually tall bodies require unusually large coffins and burial plots. I started checking cemetery records. Specifically, I was looking for graves from the 1890s with coffin dimensions noted in burial ledgers. Most cemeteries didn't record this, but some did, particularly cemeteries that charged based on plot size or offered custom burial services. Laurel Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia, now relocated but with records preserved at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, kept detailed burial ledgers, including coffin dimensions. Between 1889 and 1894, there are 63 burials recorded with coffin lengths exceeding 8 feet, standard adult coffin lengths, 6 seatings to 7 feet, 8-foot coffins, 8.5 feet. One burial in 1892, coffin length listed as 9 feet 2. The names are recorded. I cross-referenced them with the 1890 census. Found 31 of them. All had height notations in the census. All between 7 feet 4 inches and 8 feet 9. Then I checked, where are those graves now? Laurel Hill Cemetery was relocated in the 1950s during highway construction. Bodies were supposed to be moved to new plots. I went to the new cemetery, asked to see the burial records for those specific names. Were located, no plot information available. All 63, every single one. No grave markers, no new plot numbers, just relocated. I filed a request with the cemetery administration, asked for documentation of the relocation. Receipts, work orders, anything. Response: records for relocations prior to 1960 are incomplete, information not available. I kept coming back to a question: why measure height at all? Census data is expensive to collect. Every additional question, every extra notation, adds cost and time. The Census Bureau doesn't measure things arbitrarily. So why were enumerators specifically instructed to note individuals over 7 feet? I found a partial answer in the 1889 Census Bureau internal memo, declassified in 2003 under routine document review. It was included in a batch of administrative records that no one thought were important. The memo, dated April 1889, discusses special enumeration protocols for anthropometric survey. Enumerators are directed to note individuals of exceptional stature, 7 feet or greater, for inclusion in supplementary anthropometric study coordinated with Smithsonian Institution Physical Anthropometric Study, coordinated with Smithsonian Institution Physical Anthropometrics. Measurements should be recorded in Remax column. Data will be compiled separately from general census tabulation. There it was. The height measurements weren't errors. They were intentional, part of a study. A collaboration between the Census Bureau and the Smithsonian, but that study was never published. The data was never released. And by 1891, the measurements had stopped. What changed? Another memo, this one dated November 1891, found in the same batch but marked confidential, administrative only, effective immediately. Anthropometric notations are discontinued. Enumerators currently in field are instructed to cease height measurements. Previously collected data will not be included in final tabulations. All correspondence regarding this matter should be directed to the Secretary of the Interior for appropriate handling. No explanation, no reason given, just stop measuring, remove the data, direct all questions to the highest level. Something between April 1889 and November 1891 made the government decide this information was too dangerous to collect. Photographs don't lie the way documents can. I started searching for photographs from the 1880s and 1890s, showing groups of people, factory workers, street scenes, public gatherings, looking for visual evidence of unusual height proportions. Most photographs from that era show expected height distributions, but not all. The Chicago Historical Society has a collection of photographs from the 1889 Union stockyards. Workers outside the slaughterhouses, about 40 men in the frame. The photograph is clear enough to see faces, to see the building behind them. There's a doorway visible in the background, 8 windows on the wall next to it. I measured. Based on standard brick dimensions and window heights, I calculated the doorway at approximately 9 feet. The men standing in front of it look normal, proportional. But if that doorway is 9 feet, these normal-looking men are 7 to 8 feet tall. I found similar photographs, factory exteriors, group shots outside churches. The buildings are the key because you can measure buildings, and once you know the building's scale, you know the people's scale. And the proportions are wrong, over and over again. There's a photograph from the 1891 Pittsburgh steel mill. 73 men, front of the blast furnace. The furnace architecture is documented, still standing. In fact, I went there, measured the archway visible in the photo. 11 feet, 4 inches. The men reached 2/3 of the way up that arch. That makes them 7.5 to 8 feet tall. But here's the strange part. Someone tried to fix the photographs. In 2019, I requested high-resolution scans of these photographs from the archives. When I examined them closely, I could see retouching. Specifically around the feet and the ground level, the ground had been painted in, extending upward, making the figures appear to be standing on higher ground than they actually were. It's subtle. You wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. But it's there, in dozens of photographs from the 1880s and 1890s. Someone went through archives, found photographs that showed the height difference clearly, and altered them, painted in extra ground, made the people look shorter than they were. The negatives, where they still exist, show the original proportions. But most negatives from that era are gone, lost, destroyed, degraded beyond recovery. Only the retouched prints remain. The pattern was global. In March 2021, I received an email from a researcher in Adelaide. She'd read some of my preliminary research online. She had something to show me. Australian census records from 1891, South Australia specifically. I arranged to visit. November 2021. The state records of South Australia in Adelaide, Gepps Cross. She'd found the same pattern. Height notations in the remarks column. Not as many as in American cities. Australia's population was smaller, but proportionally the same. In Adelaide District 1891 census, 217 individuals with heights recorded between 7 feet 2 inches and 8 feet 4 inches. In rural South Australia, 89 more. And like the American records, these measurements stopped abruptly. The 1901 Australian census contains no height data. But here's what's different about the Australian records. They weren't destroyed. They're intact, complete, which means we can trace what happened to these people. The researcher, Dr. Sarah Chen, historian at University of Adelaide, had done that work. She'd tracked 127 of the individuals with height notations from 1891 to the 1901 census. 4 were found in the 1901 census, same names, no height notation, no explanation for why they were measured in 1890, 1 but not 1901. 123 were not in the 1901 census. Dr. Chen checked death records, found 14 deaths between 1891 and 1901. That leaves 109 unaccounted for. They didn't die, she told me. We were sitting in her office at the university, surrounded by spreadsheets and photocopied census pages. They didn't immigrate. I checked ship manifests. They didn't move to other Australian states. I checked those census records too. They just disappeared from the records. She showed me something else. A letter, found in the South Australia Governor's Papers, archived in a separate collection, dated December 1896, from the Commonwealth Census Coordinator to the Governor of South Australia. Your inquiry regarding the 1891 height measurements is acknowledged. Be advised that such measurements were conducted under protocols that have since been rescinded. The data has been deemed unreliable and will not inform future census operations. Individuals recorded with exceptional heights in 1891 are to be enumerated normally in 1901 census without notation of physical characteristics beyond standard categories. Unreliable, that's the word they used. That the measurements were taken by trained enumerators, recorded in official census forms, systematic across multiple districts. Unreliable doesn't explain why the people themselves vanished from the records. Let me add this up for you. Based on surviving census records, city directories, and archival documents from 1889 to United States, approximately 1.8 million individuals with recorded heights between 7 feet and 8 feet 6 inches. British India, 26,322 recorded, but only 3 provinces surveyed. Australia, 2,400 estimated based on surveying records. Canada, fragments exist, approximately 8,000 estimated. If the pattern held globally, accounting for population centers where records no longer exist, we're looking at somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million people. 2 million people, measured, recorded, and then erased from subsequent records. The official explanation, when there is one, is always the same. Data collection error, unreliable measurements, administrative mistake. But data collection errors don't happen systematically across multiple countries, across thousands of enumerators, with consistent measurement ranges. And errors don't get sealed under security classification. 130 years later, I spoke with Dr. Alan Mitchum, geneticist at Stanford, in August 2022. I didn't tell him why I was asking. Just posed the question. If a population group averaging 7 to 8 feet in height existed in the 1890s, would we expect to find genetic traces in modern populations? Absolutely, he said. Height is highly heritable. If you had a population with that height distribution, their descendants would show genetic markers. The alleles associated with height would be present in their offspring, even if environmental factors or genetic dilution reduced average height over generations. Would those markers be obvious in genetic databases? Depends on the population size and whether they intermarried with average height populations. But yes, we'd see frequency anomalies, clusters of height-associated alleles at higher than expected frequencies in certain regions. What if I told you those regional populations disappeared from census records between 1890 and 1900? He paused, looked at me carefully. I'd want to see the genetic data for those regions, see if the markers suddenly disappear or get geographically displaced. Has anyone looked? Not that I know of. Why would they? Height distribution in modern populations is well studied. We know the genetic variants. We know the frequencies. But has anyone looked for discontinuities? Sudden changes in regional height genetics between the 1890s and 1900s? No, the genetic data doesn't go back that far. We're working with modern samples. I sent him census data, showed him the geographic distribution of height measurements, asked, based on this, where would you expect to find genetic traces? He mapped it: northeastern US, Midwest, California, South Australia, parts of India. Then I showed him something else: orphan train records, the displacement patterns, children taken from northeastern cities, dispersed across the western states. If someone wanted to break up a genetic population, I said, prevent clustering, prevent intermarriage within the group. This is how you do it, right? He didn't answer right away. Finally, yes, that's exactly how you do it. Break up the family units, disperse the children before reproductive age. Within 2 generations, the genetic markers would be diluted below detectability in standard screening. Would there be any way to find them now? Maybe. If you could identify descendant populations, do targeted deep sequencing, looking for specific height variant clusters. But you'd need to know who to test. And you'd need to overcome the statistical noise of 130 years of genetic mixing. Has anyone tried? Not to my knowledge. But then again, no one's looking for a population that supposedly never existed. This isn't just historical erasure. It's ongoing. In June 2023, I filed FOIA requests with the National Archives, requesting 1. All surviving census schedules from 1890 containing height measurements, 2 internal Census Bureau correspondence regarding height measurement protocols, 1889, 18953, any documents related to the destruction or removal of census data from that period. Response time, 4 months. Result, partial approval, 12 pages released, 847 pages withheld. The reason for withholding: information compiled for law enforcement purposes, disclosure of which could reasonably be expected to interfere with enforcement proceedings. Enforcement proceedings. For census data from 1890, what enforcement proceedings could possibly be affected by 133-year-old height measurements? I appealed. The appeal was denied. I tried another approach, filed requests with state archives: Pennsylvania, New York, Illinois, California. Pennsylvania, records you request were transferred to federal custody in 1964. Current location unknown. New York, 1890 census materials for New York State were destroyed in 1911. Fire, no surviving copies. Illinois, access restricted, pending review. Estimated review completion, 1-8-2-4 months. California, the California State Archives initially confirmed they had the duplicate schedules I'd seen in 2019. Then, 3 weeks later, sent a correction. Previous communication was in error. Materials you reference are not in our collection, may have been transferred to Federal National Archives, but the National Archives says they don't have them. Someone is moving these records, or destroying them, or hiding them behind classifications. In 2024, right now, 2 million people. That's not a data error. That's a population that was measured, documented, photographed, that lived in homes with 9-foot doorways, that had children, that worked in factories and built buildings and left traces everywhere. And then, between one census and the next, they were erased. Not killed, there aren't 2 million death certificates. Not emigrated, there aren't ship manifests. Not misplaced, you don't misplace 2 million people. Systematically removed from official records, while the physical evidence, the buildings, the doorways, the oversized coffins, the photographs, remains. Why? What were they? Where did they come from? And why was someone so desperate to make sure we forgot they existed? The census records end in 1895. The height measurements stop. The people disappear from documentation. The children are scattered through orphan trains. The buildings with tall doorways get renovated or demolished. The photographs get retouched. The genetic traces get diluted below detection. Within one generation, it's as if they never existed. Except they did. The evidence is fragmentary, scattered, deliberately obscured. But it's there. Thousands of census entries that someone tried to erase but failed to completely destroy. Buildings that remember. Photographs that show the truth if you know how to read them. Letters from parents whose children were taken. Burial records that don't match the official story. The pattern is too consistent to be accident, too widespread to be hoax, too carefully suppressed to be insignificant. 2 million people, gone from history. And someone, even now, is still making sure you don't know they were there. I keep coming back to those census pages, the ones I photographed in 2019, names and heights recorded in careful handwriting by enumerators who had no reason to lie. They measured what they saw. They wrote it down, and then someone decided that measurement was too dangerous to keep. Maybe someday the classified documents will be released. Maybe the genetic studies will be done. Maybe we'll finally get an answer that makes sense, but I doubt it, because whatever those 2 million people represented, whatever truth their existence revealed about history or capability or origin, someone decided that truth was worth erasing, and they almost succeeded. The buildings still stand. The doorways remember. The records exist in fragments, scattered across archives and misfiled boxes and collections. No one thinks to search. If you know where to look, if you're willing to see what the evidence shows, rather than what you've been taught to believe. 2 million people, measured once, erased deliberately, forgotten almost completely. But not quite. Not yet.